Welcome to the Underground, my little underground with Peter A.
It's my little underground. I'm Peter A. I got my brothers Smiley Arriaga and Richard Arriaga to talk about our favorite games from 2004. And this is a reprise from our conversation last year about our favorite games from 2003. And my brothers are all musicians, so the links to their music will be in the episode description. And Smiley and I have a wrestling podcast called The Wrestling Caucus. So if you're a wrestling fan, you listen to My Little Underground, check out The Wrestling Caucus. The link is in the episode description below. And let's talk to my brothers about our favorite video games from 2004 right here on My Little Underground.
My Little Underground.
All right, guys, this is the year we've all been waiting for because we're talking about our favorite games from 2004. And when we were doing the show last year, we were kind of, at least I was ready for next year because there are so many legendary games that we played and that are still talked about 20 years later. And yeah, so thanks guys for coming on the show again to talk about all these great games, and we're gonna jump right into it. No need for formalities here. Alien Hominid, right? So this game first was a Flash game that was on Newgrounds in like 2002, and then 2 years later got ported to PS2, GameCube, then later Xbox. And I remember we had a demo of this game through the PlayStation magazine, right? I think we did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I forgot what disc, but I knew we had a demo for this. That's how we were like, what the hell? Like, so when we saw it, the full game in stores, we instantly bought it because we played the demo.
Yeah, I remember renting it from We rented it from Blockbuster. That's the first time we got to play the entire game. Then years later, you remember when GameStop they had a section where you can buy old PS2 and Xbox games for like next to nothing. I found, and I still have, a copy of Alien Hominid for PS2. I got it for $3. For $3. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and of course the game got ported many times, and it just got remastered again, so you can still play it now and not spend $1 million. There's a certain game on our list today that is very rare to play, but we'll get to that. So tell me your thoughts and memories of Alien Hominid.
Well, no pun intended, but because it's a game called Alien Hominid, it really did feel like it came from another world. Just because on the surface it seems like your typical side scroller, like cartoony kind of like shooter, and you're making your way through this platform section, and the puzzles get progressively more difficult. But the game really opens up when you beat it because you find out there's a whole multiplayer element to it, and the multiplayer element is so hilarious, but it's all stick figures. And it's just it was so much fun to play, and I wish we played it for longer. Like, we rented it, and I wish we had more time with it. But I'm kind of glad to hear that it's not expensive right now and that everyone can play it for pretty cheap. Yep. But I just have nothing but good memories about that game.
I like how you brought up the multiplayer mode, because it's funny because like when you play the game, whenever you pause the menu, the main character has like a gamepad, has his own little gamepad. So all the pause menu and everything is on his little pad. So when you can play the multiplayer through his quote unquote gamepad, and every control you do, you see his thumbs moving, sort of, I remember. Like,
yeah, you do. Yep.
Yeah. And I remember that we played the demo because the demo was gracious enough to include that. So like all the map making, well, at least a fraction of it, all the map making and all the little cool stuff you can do in that stick figure game was in the demo too. And the thing is, we had played that demo up and down before we even realized it was in there. So we were like, okay, yeah, we have to buy this game if we see it. Like, obviously, it's an instant buy because the demo alone is amazing.
Yeah, that PDA game mode. I mean, the game physics would crack us up for hours. It's hysterical. It's so funny, like when you fall into the electrified water and the image of your character like getting electrocuted. It's kind of it's really funny. And when you get shot by one of the guys, like it's like that fart sound. It's just hilarious.
It's kind of funny because like the alien character, he has a blaster. He has a clearly alien blaster, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, the one piece of the one thing that he has that isn't alien is just a human knife. Whenever you like melee someone, he has all this alien gadgets and stuff. When you melee someone, he just takes out a human knife and stabs them, which is so funny. Like, where do you get the knife from? Like, he's from outer space.
Right.
And although this game is so goddamn hard, and I've never beat it, I love how anyone can just join you and to play in progress. You don't have to, do any kind of any complicated connecting or anything like that. Just press start on a second controller and go crazy.
Didn't people back in the ancient times call that split screen?
No, it's not split screen. You just
but
you plug in. It's a side scrolling game.
Well, maybe it benefited from the fact that it was coming from Newgrounds, because those games were kind of geared to be multiplayer just generally, and because it's a port, I guess it wasn't like an afterthought. The multiplayer was not an afterthought; it was sort of baked into the game, and it made it a lot easier because, like we said, the game is not easy. Like, it's comical, it's almost like drawn like a cartoon. It's very, very fun to play, but it's very difficult. So having another person, if you die, at least they can make it to the end of the level, and then you get your lives back and that kind of thing.
And I just realized, go ahead.
Sorry, it's very reminiscent of the original Simpsons game where anyone can just drop in and drop out.
Well, not just that. Name a game, Metal Slug, Contra, stuff like that. Those shoot 'em up, side scrolling games. It's definitely a tribute to stuff like that.
Yep.
And one thing I noticed, because I bought the remaster on Switch, I don't know if it's just on the remaster, maybe it's on the original game. I have to try it. But your standard blaster that you get, you could charge it up and send out a big projectile blast.
I forgot about that, actually.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Oh yeah, no, you can do that.
Yeah, and we have
kind of a bullet hell too.
It was
kind of like you're like, not only are you killing enemies on the ground, you're constantly jumping and dodging a bunch of bullets from every direction.
Oh, yeah.
And we definitely have a relationship with the developer, the Behemoth, because they developed Castle Crashers, which a game that we still play endlessly till this day. It's the same spirit of Alien Hominid. Not as hard, still hard, but now it's challenging, but it's still a ton of fun. Moving on to Resident Evil 4. I know you guys didn't have a ton of time with this. I didn't have that much time with it too, but I will say that this game definitely opened my mind to survival horror, because it was framed in the type of game I was already familiar playing, because it's very weapon focused, and just like Ratchet and Clank, which we'll talk about later, and ton of replay value. Super challenging, super creepy, but it I think it was a good way for people to get to know and maintain an intrigue or explore an intrigue in survival horror games, because the earlier Resident Evils, they're not very easy to pick up and play, really. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of backtracking, there's a lot of exploring. It's not just cut and dry, level 1, level 2, level 3, and all that stuff. But it also kind of paved the way to a lot of over the head, what do you call them, just generally speaking, third-person shooters, because I don't know if Gears of War would have existed without
over
this.
The shoulder, the shit you see in Gears of War, all that over the shoulder third person stuff, it came from Resident Evil 4, and it actually, in a way, like, the older games were based on more exploration, but the thing is, Resident Evil 4 expanded on that with the 3D, with being able to look around everywhere. So it even built on the exploration even more, and because all the backtracking stuff is all part of the exploration. Like, it's all part of what, like, that even solidified what makes Resident Evil like what it is now.
And the game mechanics, like, of the original Resident Evils, it was very hard, because it was very hard to kind of like point and shoot at someone. You kind of just had to like aim in the direction of the enemy to shoot someone. But again, the point of that game is not to just blast, it's to survive. But Resident Evil 4, it's really focused on guns blazing, but there's still like a lot of that Resident Evil spirit. you have to be careful about how much stuff you take in because your inventory is limited. You have to make space for things. But then they added the merchant where you can buy and sell things and you can upgrade your guns and stuff like that. And there's a lot of unlockables after you beat the game. You get the Tommy gun and really cool wacky outfits for free, right? No DLC yet. Or microtransactions yet.
Like,
Missed that era.
Like Resident Evil 4, it says generous as it is unforgiving. Like it gives you a lot of tools to use, but it's also okay for every cool tool we give you. Here's another thing that's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and for those who want to play this game has been ported so many times. It came out on GameCube originally, then it was ported to PS2, then it was ported to Wii, and then it was ported to Xbox 360, PS3, now PS4. Then it got remade. Now it's on the new console. So if you want to try this game, it's widely available. All right, moving on to a game that came out at the same time, and it had just as much of an impact. I'm talking, of course, about Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. And this first came out on PS2 only, fall of 2004. Then it got ported to PC and Xbox, and then everywhere. Then also got remade. So this game is very accessible. So tell me your guys' thoughts and memories about San Andreas.
Well, I could talk forever about the story mode in this game. Just narratively speaking, the characters were interesting. The story was very interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Samuel Jackson have a role in this game?
Yeah, he plays the Tenpenny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right away, like his voice is very recognizable, and I love that he's playing a corrupt cop. But to be honest, most of my memories of this game are from just like exploring the world. Like I remember this was the kind of game that you didn't have to really do the story mode. You could really just explore, go anywhere, cause a ruckus. And I've spent many hours holed up in a police station trying to survive for as long as possible. The game just lets you play it. You know, I like that. It's not really on rails. And you can really get lost. I think one time I got lost in a certain part of the map that I wasn't supposed to be in yet. And I was just driving around. But I do that for most of the time when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. I really just like get in a car, go for a cruise. But yeah, no, this game was very, very hard to put down. Once you start playing it, like you see the hours go by and you're like, oh man, I've been playing this for quite a while. But yeah, no, a lot of fun playing this game.
I'm glad you brought up the exploration because like this game had a very hilarious way of telling you, hey, you're not supposed to be here yet. As where in older Grand Theft Auto games, when you weren't supposed to be in a later area, they either have it blocked off or whatever, or like, you know, it'll just be a blank area. Be like, oh, there's nothing here. In San Andreas, if you're in an area you're not supposed to be in yet, because like in the beginning of the game, the main character, he's in trouble with the cops, so he's not allowed to leave the first the first town. So whenever you leave the first town, you instantly get 6 stars, and cops, like 6 or 5 stars, and cops will, come and kill you and beat the crap out of you. In terms of the story, other than like up until Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, there is not a single Rockstar game that had a better story than San Andreas. Like San Andreas had the best story I've ever played, and like probably in almost any Grand Theft Auto game. It starts and it ends like amazingly, and like it always keeps you guessing, and it's hysterical. If you ever seen like a Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood, you will instantly vibe with San Andreas. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, if you're a fan of John Singleton, you're going to be a fan of this game. It was Boys in the Hood like, and I love how the different areas looked different. There wasn't like a sameness to the game, right? Like you start out in Los Santos, which is kind of like South Central. Then you move into, the kind of rural part of San Andreas. Then you go into San Fierro, which is kind of like not San Diego, San Francisco. Then you go into Las Venturas, which is kind of like Vegas, which is interesting. Yeah. So, and all the areas look different. There are different things to do. And also, yes, the story's great. CJ and dealing with corrupt cops, and you think dealing with gang politics and stuff like that, which is all great.
His boys turn on him.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great. It's a Kendrick Lamar song that hasn't happened yet. And speaking of rappers, the game is in it too. And the soundtrack, oh my God, like They have Radio Los Santos, which it takes place in 92. So they have Radio Los Santos, which is they have a lot of like, rappers from LA at that time. They had Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, MC8. They had NWA. I don't remember hearing a lot of Tupac on the soundtrack, but which was, he was part of Digital. They had Digital Underground, I think, at that time.
They had like one or two Tupac songs on here, I believe.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, then they had
soundtrack was stacked.
It was great. Yeah, then they had Radio X, which was like the rock station. They had Guns N' Roses, and they had Stone Temple Pilots. Who else? Alice in Chains, which is interesting because that was the only, because 92 was like peak grunge. And they didn't have, I don't remember hearing Soundgarden, no Nirvana, that was shocking to me because that was
they probably couldn't get the rights.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
It was the same feeling I had when I played Mafia 3, a game that takes place in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it had no Beatles. Because they wanted to put Beatles in here, but they couldn't be, the rights were too much probably.
But they did have Living Color.
They did.
Yeah,
San Andreas.
Cult of Personality was on it. Yeah, and what was it? Playback FM was kind of like the old school rap station. They had Eric B and Rakim. I think Big Daddy Kane was on it, I believe. Oh, Gangstar was on it too. It was a really great soundtrack. Then they had was it Playback FM? What was they had an R&B soul station where they had James Brown and stuff like that. They played the stuff that rappers were sampling at the time. So it was
James Brown. They had like white people rock and roll, and they had real rock and roll all in this game.
Yeah, they had exactly. And they had the Kool and the Gang. It's a really great soundtrack. And also the activities in this game were just you can be a taxi driver, you can be a pimp too.
You can be an EMT. You can like literally jack an ambulance and be an EMT, like in Grand Theft Auto 3. But they even expanded even more on that.
You can work out. It was like very RPG like. You can build your stamina. You can get in shape. You can get fat. And if you don't eat, the game reminds you to eat, and you start losing weight and losing health. You can swim. Grand Theft Auto games before.
Another feature. You see, that's yet another feature that wasn't in any other Rockstar game until Red Dead 2. That's one of the things that impressed me about Red Dead 2. Like, there's so many San Andreas features in this game.
Where do you guys rank San Andreas in the lore and history of Grand Theft Auto?
It's towards the top for me. Grand Theft Auto, it's hard to beat because it has all of these elements that we've been talking about, and also like even though you can make an argument about like the graphics, like graphics are always a topic, but the way that the game kind of just lets you explore, and also like you said, you could get fat if you eat, like it seems like such a small detail, but it really adds to the replay value. Like you could be fat CJ, and then like maybe in a couple of weeks or like a couple of hours you could be like super ripped, So in terms of like where I rank it, it's towards the top. I would say Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, Vice City, Grand Theft Auto 5, at the base core, like, all the, unnecessary DLC and remastered aside. But yeah, it's definitely the top 3 for me, I would say.
Oh, yeah, that remaster, yeah, we can't talk about that. Because not only did they cut out parts of the great soundtrack, but we all know that they fucked that up, graphic, everything else. But like,
strangely enough, the Grand Theft Auto, the original San Andreas, much better than the remake, even though the remake came out recently. Like I would rather play the original version.
Like in terms of like the graphics, like obviously you can argue that it has PlayStation 2 graphics, but the cool thing about the graphics of this game, its art style carried it. Like, Grand Theft Auto, like, you notice in the loading screens, it looks Rockstar has a very unique comic book like look to them, but like it's a gritty and grounded comic book look, and it's also very colorful. And in the games, they even for like its PS2 hardware, it did a great job on like stretching the console. Like it obviously doesn't look photorealistic, but you see like small details on people's faces, like in like the environment around you. But Peter, to answer your question, in terms of how I rank this game of Grand Theft Auto, story wise, number 1, gameplay wise, number 2. because although Grand Theft Auto 5 story doesn't touch San Andreas, the gameplay definitely for years now, like modders have been hoping, oh man, like fucking if you like take Grand Theft Auto 5's gameplay and you have everything else about San Andreas, like modders have done it. I've seen videos of it. It's amazing. But yes, it just shows you how prolific San Andreas still is.
Yeah, I think this is definitely my favorite Grand Theft Auto for replay value, story. Yeah, the gameplay, at least for its time, when you look at how Grand Theft Auto, progressed, not as good as far as like fluid gameplay and shooting mechanics and all that stuff. But to me, I return to this Grand Theft Auto more than anyone ever. And, the music, just incredible. You don't have as many choices for outfits and attire like you would a later one, or GTA 5 at least. But to me, I come back to this more. But also on the subject of original and remastered, yes, I do prefer the original copy of San Andreas. However, I had some issues, at least on the PS2 version, of discrete errors. Tons of discrete errors. Once you get to because again, there's a lot in this game. Once you get to San Fierro, Las Venturas, I guess the game has a hard time just loading all of that data, and it causes discrete errors. But on the remaster, you don't have that problem because technology of gaming is evolved substantially. But still, I would prefer to play the original over the remaster, even though I think of the remasters that just came out, the San Andreas one is the best one.
You got to hand it to Rockstar, no matter whether it was San Andreas or some games are coming out with now. They really knew how to stretch a console. They knew how to test the limits of the console. And that's the only bad thing you really can say about San Andreas. Like, oh man, the game is so damn powerful. Like, dude, just recently I was trying to play Grand Theft Auto 4 on the PS3, and the PS3 just started crapping out on me after all the years we've had it. The games are powerful.
They're very powerful. All right, moving on to, we're going to talk about some combat sports games, and starting with one of the most, if not the most unique combat sports game of all time, Def Jam Fight for New York. The sequel to Def Jam Vendetta that came out the year prior, which wasn't as good. This game, at least for me, it had a very cool story, very interesting soundtrack, and very interesting characters to play as, because you're playing as rappers signed to Def Jam or signed to Def Jam at one point, right, and some actors, and very unique fighting styles, because it kind of had the spirit of WWF No Mercy and the WWF SmackDown games, WWE SmackDown games as well, like the Fight Night series and the growing UFC and MMA games that were starting to come out at that time. And I think this game it had a lot of replay value, and it was hard to master. Not that easy to pick up either, honestly. It took years and a lot of play time to really understand the mechanics of this game. And I still because there's so much to this game as far as how do you even, it's hard to describe too, because it kind of plays like Tekken, it kind of plays like a wrestling game, kind of plays like a boxing game, kind of plays like MMA
like
game.
A lot of the Akai wrestling games, this game pretty much is on that engine, pretty much.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's on the Akai engine?
No.
It isn't?
It's not.
It looks just like No Mercy.
It does not play like that at all. It's totally unique.
Yeah, it looks like I like how it looks like No Mercy, but with hip hop in it.
No, it's not. It has a spirit of it, because you do a lot of wacky, there's a lot of wacky game types. Like you can do it like a subway fight where you throw somebody onto the subway tracks, which is very hard to do. You can kick somebody out a window. It's something, because
fighting game.
Yeah, if you play as Ice-T, you can be you're like submissions. A lot of your moves are submissions. If you play as Fat Joe, you have wrestling moves. If you play as like Redman, you're doing a lot of kickboxing and brawling and stuff like that.
And it's same as Method Man too. Method Man too. You basically can F5 motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me your thoughts about this game. It's there's a lot to talk about in this with this one.
It's really like it's a hidden gem in gaming history, because a game like that you could see just by the cost of getting that game today. If you want to buy that game, you're gonna be shelling out like $100 or more, because that a game like that is hard to do today. Every artist would want their cut of the pie, and every artist would want, their rights, maybe put their music in here. Like, it would be very hard to do that. But at the time when it came out, I wasn't familiar with a lot of those artists. I mean, I listened to Snoop Dogg, I listened to, I knew of Ice-T, and I knew a lot of the artists, but it exposed me to the world of Def Jam, and I learned about so many artists that I wouldn't have known if I wasn't playing video games. Maybe I would have like caught them on the radio or on YouTube or something. But I just remember it was touching on so many different things. Like, I love fighting games, so it hit that mark for me. I loved hip hop, touched that for me. And just like, I don't know, it's iconic to see Snoop Dogg as a pimp walking around with the cane. He's kind of like the villain of the game.
Yeah, he's top
Yeah,
heel.
he basically is. He basically is the villain of the game.
It very creative. Like, I don't see a game like that happening for a long time. But it was very unique. I will say.
This game there will never be another game like this.
No, like people
ever.
are too. You see, hip hop is too hip hop is very like, unlike around the time this came out. Hip hop is very mainstream right now, and like you, Richard, like you said, everyone's gonna want their piece. You know what I mean? Like
hip hop was very mainstream at the time. It was in the suburbs at this point. In 2004, it was huge. But now with streaming, it kind of like, and with the internet, it kind of inflated it. But it was still it was on and popping at this time.
It's even more mainstream now, to the point where everybody's gonna want their end of this game. It's gonna be.
Well, that's true.
Like, if this game was made today and you put like every hip hop artist, male, female, everybody, like, it will be more expensive than Halo Infinite.
Not even that. People are more greedy now.
That's what I'm saying. Everyone's gonna want their piece. Everyone, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I was so impressed with this game because, like, it basically it did the same thing for me that Guitar Hero 3 did for me when it comes to like classic rock. Like, we've been hearing all these songs our whole life, but playing Def Jam, I'm like, oh, that's who that guy is. That's who that name is. I know that voice. What the hell? Like, that's who these guys are. And like, the way it represented hip hop like no other game has. Like, it's one in a million, this game.
I think whoever made this game was a wrestling fan, because
hell yeah.
the core of this game, like at least on the story mode, it's a creative person. The protagonist is you. So however you want to look like, that's what it is. And I just think that idea is just it's just superb. And has so much imagination, and it's kind of like the story was so wild. Like it's like an underground, it's like a Fight Club type of thing. And you start dating people, and then you choose if you want your girlfriend to be Carmen Electra or Lil Kim. Like, it's just crazy.
No,
it's out of this. Yeah. And then Sticky
like
Fingers is going crazy. Like, he's like a crazy villain. He lights this warehouse on fire. You have to fight him in. It's insane. It's a lot going on.
It's kind of like
talking about it to someone who has either never played video games before. It starts to sound like a fever dream. Like, someone had dreamed this game up and woke up. I want to make a video game with a bunch of hip hop artists and they're all fighting each other. Like, it
sounds like ChatGPT made a video game. Like, it doesn't sound real.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
No, like fuck ChatGPT. But like this game, like the story felt like watching Power, but more ridiculous, but also more fun. In a way, like, like I don't know if Snoop Dogg being the villain, it wasn't really a surprise, because just look at him. Like, if you see his character in the game, you're like, okay, that's the villain. That guy's the villain.
Yep. And his boss fight was so much fun to play.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, there's never going to be a game like this, like, ever. It was so unique. I can't even begin to describe what, like, your rappers, and mostly rappers, because they had some actors too, Danny Trejo, and I mentioned Carmen Electra, Lil Kim, but also, like, Richie brought up a good point about the price of this game. I just Googled it while you guys were talking. First thing I see, Def Jam 5 in New York, PS2, disc only, $135.
That's
That's how
without
much Grand Theft Auto 6 might cost.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
Like-
so you know what? Like, yeah, you're right, Michael. Like, there's a lot of games today when you get like the full package, they cost around the prices of these games. They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you want like the Super Vault edition of Call of Duty, it's $100. The Super John Cena version of the last WWE 2K game, $100. So it's in the ballpark of like an expansion pack version of a video game. Like World of Warcraft, all their expansion packs will run you like $200, $300 probably. So it's not, yes, for a game that's 20 years old, it's very pricey. I don't think it ever got ported to Xbox 360 and
No, unfortunately
what have
not.
you,
We
no.
have to settle with fucking Def Jam Icon, which is a watered down version of this game.
Yeah,
see,
just don't even.
If the
you know.
games industry cared
It's like talking about a Black Sabbath album without Ozzy or Tony Iommi or anyone like that.
essentially, like if the games industry cared about hip hop and gamers and like actually people, if the games industry cared about hip hop and gamers and not investors, we would totally get a great Def Jam game with the amount of rappers that they are, both underground and everywhere. Like imagine having a game where you can play as Benny the Butcher and Method Man and
Conway the
Rhapsody.
Machine. Yeah.
Yeah, Conway the Machine, everyone in Griselda. You can play as Rhapsody, Jean Grey, fucking Princess Nokia.
Imagine playing as like
Cardi B.
Tierra Whack. Like,
right?
Imagine all the stuff that she can do. She's
No Name and shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Or Meg Thee Stallion and playing like, oh my god, yo. Like, and like, and if they, if everyone wasn't so obsessed with money, imagine like every time an artist comes out with a new album, they get like a free DLC pack with like new songs and like new outfits and shit.
Be the most popular game. Be the most popular game. With Schoolboy Q, you hit somebody with a golf club.
Oh my god, this game would like a new Def Jam game would be like like one that handled with care because like realistically a new Def Jam game would come out would be riddled with microtransactions and bullshit. But a new Def Jam
the NFT Snoop Dogg character.
Oh god, NFTs are dead. But like a new Def Jam game for gamers would be phenomenal.
Here's the second combat sports game on our list: SmackDown versus Raw. Now, this was the first in the SmackDown versus Raw series because they kind of stopped the SmackDown series. And this game is interesting because is it my favorite in the WWE, wrestling game universe? No. But there are some things about this game that I find very interesting because especially the elements that brought me back to play this game, over and over again was pay-per-view mode. This is kind of like the beginning of what universe mode will become in the 2K series because you can make your own pay-per-view card. And I loved it. It made you like, it kind of worked your imagination a little bit. And they had a new game mode called the parking lot brawl mode where you're just in a garage and there's cars everywhere. You can do things to people because it's kind of like an inspiration from John Cena and Eddie Guerrero's parking lot brawl from, I think it was a SmackDown in like 2003. And I think they just made that into a game mode, which was cool. And it was the first, WWE game that had online play. But you couldn't do much. You only were allowed to do like a single match or brawn pennies. That's it. But it started. It was a good start. It was
the games like wrestling games have come a long way from this, but I would spend the most time in the character creator.
Yeah, and they had actual licensed songs, not just generic music. But I prefer the generic music. So.
No, this game was fun to play. It was great to be like a wrestling fan playing this because up to that point, I mean, I'm not the best example of a wrestling fan because up until this point when this game came out, I maybe knew a small handful of wrestlers. So to have a large roster from SmackDown and Raw, not only did I get to like have my own dream matches, but I also learned a lot of wrestlers that I didn't know before. So it was kind of cool to be exposed to that. because now, back then, after playing that for a couple of hours, like watching Raw, watching SmackDown made me want to play this game more.
Moving on to some platformers that we definitely all of us spent a lot of time with, starting with Crash Twinsanity. This game is not talked about enough.
Nearly enough.
But I think this was a good step in the right direction for evolving the Crash series, because they didn't have like a hub world. Like, you didn't go to the, you go play 5 levels, beat a boss, go to the next hub world, play 5 levels, beat a boss, go to the next one, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It was kind of like a little mini movie, and it was just continuous. It was one long continuous level, and I thought that was amazing, and it was a good change of pace for the Crash series. What do you guys think?
I definitely agree. It was a great change of pace because they introduced a villain that was more evil than Dr. Cortex. So what that did for the game was that it allowed you to explore Crash's side of the story and also Dr. Cortex's side of the story, and even his family. So you have all these new characters being introduced, and you get to play as them too. They're not just like in a cutscene. You got to play as Nina. There was a whole sequence for her that was really, really cool. And just every moment of the game is super iconic. The soundtrack was pretty much all like vocal. It was all vocal, which was so
amazing.
Cool. It was incredible. Like I honestly, like, if it exists, I wish that there was some documentary footage of like how they recorded the soundtrack, because that alone is iconic. Yeah,
it was a doo-wop group. It was amazing.
And the art style was very different from the Crash games that came before. It stood out. It still stands out among the Crash lore.
This game was a step in the right direction for the Crash series, but I argue that not a single Crash game ever capitalized on that. There was supposed to be a sequel to this game that was scrapped. There's you can look it up. Crash Twinsanity sequel. There's concept art. There's models that were made. It was about to be like what Tears of the Kingdom is to Breath of the Wild. It was like, oh my god, like you have this ambitious game and a sequel to the ambitious game, but they scrapped that game to make Crash of the Titans, which sucked. But with Crash Twinsanity, the story, it was like Peter, like you guys pointed out, this was the first Crash Bandicoot game that didn't have like hub worlds. It was the best narrative I've ever played in any Crash Bandicoot game. And like how like Richard said, like how they introduced Cortex niece, Nina Cortex. The only thing I didn't like about this game, the one thing is that you got to play as Cortex and his family, but you got to play as Crash, but no Coco. Coco was taken out. She was in the story, but she was frozen by Cortex's gun. It was dumb, but like that was one. Yeah, like it was supposed to be a gag, which pissed me off but like, man, Crash 4 was good, but man, nothing was as ambitious as Twinsanity. Like this game was phenomenal.
Yeah, there's so much to say about this game. One thing I love is like not Crash, but Cortex kind of goes babyface, and you kind of work with him to fight a large villain. Like, honestly, the villains were kind of forgettable, but the memorable thing about this game was the dynamic between Crash and Neo, and they're kind of like, when you play as them together, they're kind of fighting over a crystal, and you can use Cortex like kind of as a hammer.
The animation work in those sequences was not like I've never seen that ever again in a platformer. They literally when in levels where you play as crashing in Cortex, when you stand still, when you're not moving, they're in a fight bubble and they're beating the crap out of each other. No, like when you're moving around, they're in a fight, they're rolling around in a active fight bubble that's well designed. And then when you stand still, there's different animations of them doing submissions on each other. Like Crash would be doing like a one-legged crab on Cortex, and like Cortex would be slamming Crash's face into the floor.
And there's one part. This is the most memorable part. You guys remember this when you have Cortex in the tube and you have to push him around. Yep. And in the cutscene, like he's like, can't this get any worse? And he farts and like cries a little bit.
I mean, I still love the flight of the Bumblebee sequence when you're using Cortex as a Like I felt so bad for him, but I was like, this is amazing. This is like the greatest game that I've ever played.
It was
And it
so
had
funny.
like Richard, I love how you pointed out the soundtrack because it had like
Yeah.
during that B sequence, it had like the classic B musically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it was amazing. This game is a classic and it is not talked about enough.
No, it's so funny. It is so it's like a Pixar movie, but like just in a game. It was unbelievable. It's and it's pretty cheap to pick up. You know, it's not, $1,000, but it hasn't been remastered or or ported to any of the newer consoles. So if you still have a PS2, Xbox, or GameCube, highly recommend picking this up. Still haven't beat it. I have to beat it. I have to sit down and beat
the
this
last boss of Twinsanity. I beat it. Oh, yo, the last boss is hard as hell because you have to play as Crash, Neocortex, and Nina they all tag team. It's so worth it because Jesus, the ending of this game is hysterical.
Yeah.
It's fucking like I don't know what happens. I don't know how, but like Cortex, like they all won, right? And you think, yeah, we're buddies now. But Cortex, he tries to pull one last one on Crash. Like, now I finally got you. I don't know what happened. He got zapped inside of Crash's head, and Cortex was stuck, and within Crash's brain is just a bunch of clones of Crash. So Cortex is just surrounded by a bunch of his dancing nemesis. Like, I'm not doing it justice. Like, it's
right.
the funniest thing. Like, this game was incredible.
Where do you guys rank this in the Crash universe?
Yeah, I would say this is my favorite Crash game. It's iconic, and it's also just so much fun to play. The one thing that I will say about any Crash game that is worth playing, that they're hard, but the payoff is so worth it. Like, there have been times, like, as beautiful and fun as this game was and still is, I would have to stop, go touch some grass, and just get out of it because it's like,
Yes.
there's that one part and then you run out of lives and you have to start everything over again. Like, but it's very rewarding. Games like this are very rewarding. But I would say, like, the top on my list are Crash Twinsanity, Wrath of Cortex, and also Crash Team Racing, which is a very, very, very fun game to play. But Twinsanity takes the trophy, at least for me.
No, I totally agree. Twinsanity is number one because it's the most creative. It takes everything that was good about Wrath of Cortex, the music, the levels, and it streamlines it into a really well done narrative. Like, it is kind of like a game on our list, Half-Life 2, where although there's cutscenes in Crash Insanity, it goes to one area to the next seamlessly.
Yes.
Like, it's amazing.
And working with like your longtime foe is really cool. And yeah, it's definitely my top Crash game. Yeah, exactly like what you guys are talking about. The narrative, the story of this game is just great. It's not like you go through level, boss, over, goodbye. But a lot of people love the original trilogy of Crash games, which are great and also super hard. But this is my favorite. All right, moving on. Ratchet and Clank, Up Your Arsenal. Not one of my favorites in the series, but like all the Ratchet and Clanks, I played this many times as well. And I still enjoyed it. Tell me your thoughts. Give me your guys' memories and thoughts on this.
I do remember that this was the first Ratchet and Clank game that had a multiplayer function. Even though that the multiplayer was kind of lacking compared to the story, some of the textures weren't there, but at least you were able to play the game with someone else, like in terms of like online capabilities. But the story itself, this is my take. I don't think this game was a Ratchet game. I really do think this game was Quark's game. I think that, like, the way the story is built, it gives Quark this opportunity of redemption, because normally, like, since the first Ratchet and Clank game, Quark was like the hero turned villain, like he wasn't really a good guy, and they really dove deep into his psyche, and you kind of like understand his character a little more. Of course, you have like the classic Ratchet and Clank adventure, and that is sort of, that's the whole game is baked around that. Levels, weapons are ridiculous, like things that you expect from Ratchet and Clank. But in terms of like the story and how far they took the characters, Quark really shines in this game. He has a big arc, and that's one of my biggest takeaways from this game.
You know, Richard, I'm glad you brought that up because, like, when I first played Up Your Arsenal, yeah, my first impression was like, okay, this is not as good as Going Commando. Like, there's multiplayer and shit, even though the multiplayer is because of like the limitations of the game and the console. Well, more so the limitations of the console. The multiplayer is a watered down version of the campaign, but the campaign is so like at first I was like, oh man, like I feel like Ratchet and Clank took like are sidelined in this game. Like, you know, like most of their scenes are even in moments where Clank was replaced by a double agent Clank, like oh, it's more they're more of like gags, you know what I mean? But then I love how you brought up this really is Captain Quark's story. Like because like the way you find Quark in Ratchet and Clank 3 is hysterical. He's like he's lost his memory. He's like stranded in the woods. He's like this shaman leader. He has a cult. But the payoff to that story when he regains his memory back is amazing. All the
I also loved how you follow Quark's story through vid comics, which to me that the game is so beautifully layered because you have the video game obviously, but then there's the game in the game, and one of the coolest things about Up Your Arsenal is that they have these jokes, but there's one joke where Ratchet is like, you know, showing like a cheat code for the vid comic, but it's an actual cheat code in the game. So if you're paying attention and you do up, down, left, right, circle, square, square, like that's a real cheat code, you know? So like the game is just like, it's constantly giving you little treats to pick up. And if you play it more than once, you'll have a great time and you'll learn even more about the game. So it was kind of fun to play. And what Michael said is very true. It doesn't really stand up against Going Commando in terms of like, you know, a trequel, but it does a lot of good things for Ratchet and Clank. And it's very enjoyable to play.
Yes, I think if you're a fan of the original Ratchet and Clank games, you have the chance or the possibility of like missing certain things about this game, like I did. And I think yes, like to Richie's point about this being Quark's game, this is also Nefarious's game.
Yo,
because
yeah.
him as a villain, he's one of the greatest video game villains like ever. He's hilarious, he's hysterical, and he's truly a bastard. Because the whole point of this game is he hates humans because he was once a human and humans betrayed him. So now he's going to wipe humanity. No more biological anything. Everyone's going to be a robot.
Lies! Squishy lies!
And I love that like he kind of has he malfunctions and then he spits out like soap opera dialogue. It's just like it's
whenever he has a malfunction, like yeah, you would hear the soap opera play audio from a soap opera playing from his.
His game is hysterical.
Like you have to see it to believe it. It's like
it kind of like Ratchet and Clank kind of share the real estate. It's almost like when a rapper gets big and they get their own imprint and they make an album with the people on their imprint. Like
that's a great way to describe it.
With 50 Cent, the G-Unit Beg for Mercy album, like what Conway the Machine is doing now with drum work, and what Lil Wayne did with Young Money, and yeah, it's exactly what it is because now you're learning more about Quark and you're playing all these side games like the Quark vid comics, which I think are just outstanding, and you're learning about Nefarious and. Clank is getting a lot more shine now with the Secret Agent Clank and all that stuff, which became a PSP game later on. I love the opening scene where you're watching Secret Agent Clank and the main villain, he gets like electrocuted. It's the animations.
I would watch a Secret Agent Clank show.
I definitely would too. And also like, yes, with this game, there's a lot of like repackaged versions of things that happen in Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. Like instead of chasing moonstones, you're looking at sewer crystals, which wasn't as fun because you're just in the sewer.
It's a lot of reused assets, but not like the sewer. Like here's the thing: the sewer area, like it did kind of grow on me because wow, it's super intricate, and I've actually went back and found secrets that I didn't find before. It's like, but. Yeah, like it wasn't as fun as the desert sections, but I applaud the effort that I applaud the way they reused assets from Ratchet and Clank 2. Like I like it, but like you know, like this game was a slow burn. Like you know, like
definitely was a slow burn. Yeah,
Yeah, at first, like, oh, it's fun and there's a lot of stuff to do, but it's not as good as going Commando. But I learned to appreciate it so much more. I think Ratchet Deadlocked is a better sequel because it focuses more on Ratchet and Clank, and Deadlocked is better written. But I think Peter, I liked how you described it. Yeah, Ratchet and Clank 3 is basically a Ratchet and Clank collabos album. It's like we're featuring all of the best side characters from Ratchet and Clank, and we're putting them all. And they made the Q Force, Skid McMarks, Helga, Big Al, and Scrunch the Monkey. Who can forget him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're all like these are the greatest side characters I've seen in any video game. It's and also and also like the president and his daughter Sasha, who Sasha's more competent than her dad, who's the president. The story really is interesting when you really take a look. Oh, and Lawrence, Nefarious' butler. Jesus.
Yeah. And one of my favorites, like Quark, is definitely one of the funniest characters in this game. And after you beat the giant Tyrannoid boss, and Quark takes the credit and he stomps on the eyeball.
That was great. That was good. Yeah, that was good animation too.
I thought it was really funny. This game is really charming, and I don't know, I like it more than Deadlock because of the charm factor, the humor. All right, so now let's move on to some really legendary first-person shooters that came out this year. Definitely paved the way to the growth of this very popular genre. So kind of want to start with Half-Life 2. I never played Half-Life 2, so I know, Smiley, I know you played this a lot, so did you play it a lot, or did you just know
I played this a lot.
Okay, all right, so I'll let you talk about it.
I discovered it on the orange box, and then I realized that it's a PC, like, classic. There's just more you can do on PC, but, like, where do I begin? Jesus. Okay, so you know how, like, Crash of Insanity does that thing where it takes you from one area to the next seamlessly? Half-Life 2 did that even better, in the sense that there are no cutscenes in this game. Everything you never leave the player. Everything you experience, you're in Gordon Freeman's shoes the whole time. There's no cutscenes where it takes you, like, where the camera goes out and you see Gordon's face. You see everything through Gordon's eyes. I don't know how the fuck they did this. They take you from each area to the next so seamlessly. The gunplay is addicting. Okay, like, you know how in Tears of the Kingdom you have Ultra Hand, you can lift up objects?
Yeah.
That came from Half-Life. Half-Life 2, you have the gravity gun where you can lift up, and even before you get the gravity gun, you can lift, even when you have no weapons, if you look at an object in Half-Life 2 that has the physics in this game, oh my God, you can pick up every single object you see in the game. Like, and the way this game introduces this to you, because, like, you're in an occupied area. Like, and you're basically a prisoner in a town. Like, you're in an open air prison in the start of the game. And, like, the way the game introduces the physics to you, you walk by a guard standing by a trash can, and the guard, he blocks you and he says, pick it up. This is all gameplay, by the way. He says, pick up that can and throw it out. Now, you have the option to pick it up and throw it in the can, or you can throw it at the officer and he can hit you and he sends you on your merry way. Like, the physics in this game are incredible. Like, the gunplay is flawless, but my God, like, there's so many little things that this game does, and the story is so intriguing. Like, it's like Halo 2, but very grounded and even weirder. Like, I won't bore you with the details because I know you guys didn't play it, but if you love creative first-person shooters, totally go back to Half-Life 2. And like Halo 2, we will talk about that. Just the creative suite that you have outside of the campaign with the multiplayer and, like, the map design, just the modding communities of these games, like, have kept these games alive and have inspired future games after. It's unbelievable.
Gary's mod.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, I can go on and on. Like,
yeah, it was kind of like a sandbox modding platform for people to do whatever wacky. What game came out of games actually came out of Team Fortress, and what else? Portal?
Portal, hell,
Portal?
Yeah, Portal. There are Half-Life Easter eggs in Portal, and vice versa.
Yeah,
like, it's basically the same assets, but, like, with completely different like they do what Bethesda does, but better. Bethesda, a lot of their games use the same, very similar assets and stuff like that. But like Portal and Half-Life are two completely different games. It's unreal.
And this game is only on PC and Xbox.
And yeah, the orange box. That's like, but like PC is the way to go because like you experience like pretty much like the multiplayer as well, like all the creative stuff. Like it, yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, Half-Life 2 is good on any console. If you wanted just a good story, a good time, go back to Half-Life 2. And it is difficult, but there's like environmental puzzles. You have to look around to like, and it's so subtle. Like, oh, here's this crate that I gotta lift, and here's a pathway I can go through. Like it's so amazing. I can go on and on.
And it's still on Steam, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Team Fortress is a game I wish I played a little bit more.
It's like the less greedy. It's like Overwatch, but not greedy.
Got it.
Like all the person, like what people call the hero shooter. It all comes from Team Fortress.
Okay.
Like man, man. So no, I can go on and on about Half-Life 2. Just if you haven't played that shit, play it. Just fucking play Half-Life 2. Just play Half-Life 2.
Last but certainly not least, Halo 2. We did not have Xbox. We were a PlayStation house. But we would go to our cousin's house and play this game endlessly. Because where do we even begin? Because from a story perspective, right? It just like Ratchet Clank Up Your Arsenal, Twin Sanity, it gave the antagonists some nuance to their plight and their story. So you have both perspectives. You play as Master Chief, you get the UNSC and the human perspective. Then you play as the Arbiter, and you get the Covenant elites side of things in their war. And this was the game that kind of helped kickstart Xbox Live. Without this game, I don't think there would have been another Xbox. Like there wouldn't have been.
No.
Period. And console online gaming, not sure where that would be without this. I don't even know what it like. You guys, like, give me your thoughts. There's so much to say.
In terms of the original Halo trilogy, Halo 1, 2, and 3, Halo 2 was the Odyssey. Like this is like sequel study 101. Like you make a game where you're shooting aliens, and that's fun. Halo Combat Evolved is fun. It's a lot of fun. But to make a game where not only do you put your player in the position to go against the aliens again with cooler weapons and all these things, but you give your antagonist a story too. So now you're raising the stakes, you're making the world deeper, richer, but you're also giving the player an experience. Like, yeah, you can play as Master Chief, but guess what? There's an alien equivalent to the Master Chief, and it's the Arbiter. And so now you're sort of making two games in one. One game that is kind of familiar, where we get it, like we're an unstoppable machine of a human, of a super soldier. But then you sort of start to question, okay, we're shooting the Covenant, but they're not just faceless enemies. So in terms of writing, in terms of storyboarding, and in terms of set design, Halo 2 took Halo to the next level. Like there wouldn't be a Halo 3 without Halo 2. Like the Halo 3 is the payoff to Halo 2, and it's so many hours have gone into this game in terms of campaign, multiplayer, custom games, like glitches, all the super jumps, like
oh my god,
secrets, the Scarab gun, which I've never found in a playthrough of Halo. I've never done it, but to see the level of detail, the love that Bungie put into this game, it's still unfolding. It's you can still find something new in the game, after the first, second, 20th playthrough. But yeah, this game is my favorite Halo out of all of them so far.
Agreed.
Like, where do I begin? Jesus. Okay, so like even with the glitches, right? The glitches aren't like stuff it's not, the glitches aren't in the game because the game is broken. This game is incredibly polished. The glitches back then were like cheat codes. Like, hey, if you go to this corner of the map and do this and jump and stuff like that, you're gonna bounce all the way to the sky, the super jump, right? But just loading up Halo 2, the menu. Before you even start the game, before you even press the start button, you load up the menu.
The music. Unbelievable.
Music. Think of all the greatest scores in film everywhere, like The Dark Knight, fucking the score to even modern shows like Succession. None of these scores touch the Halo 2 score. The Halo 2 score is better than most cinema. And Richard, I love how you brought up the story of like how Halo 3 is basically, people argue that Halo 3 is better than Halo 2.
Cap.
Not like it's kind of like how I would say like with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame is a phenomenal film because it is the conclusion to how good Infinity War was. Halo 3 literally is the conclusion to the masterpiece that is Halo 2. Literally, like the last level of Halo 2 was supposed to be the battle on Earth against Truth, with the Arbiter and Master Chief joining together to fight Truth. But they were like, okay, what if we do more and just make another Halo game? So Halo 3 is basically, that's why Halo 3 is so much shorter than Halo 2, because it is basically just the ending to Halo 2. Like, and Halo 2's story was just, the Arbiter is, I'm going to quote someone else saying this, the Arbiter is a better Master Chief. He's like if you took Master Chief, but you gave him so much, even more depth. Like, because the Arbiter is someone who lost to Master Chief. Like, when the first Halo ring blew up in Halo 1, the person who was overseeing that mission on the Covenant side, on the alien side, was the Arbiter. And Halo 2 starts, and like even the parallels, Halo 2 starts with Master Chief getting commendations for what he did. But it also starts with the Arbiter getting his ass chewed out for losing to Master Chief. Like all of that shit was under his command. He wasn't on the ground, but all the shits were under his command. And
it's a story. Halo is a story of misinformation, false prophets, and it was very well told.
How disgrace can lead to glory in a different way. Like the Arbiter, he was a disgraced command. He was disgraced by his government, but then only to find redemption in himself and the people who stood by him while they were betrayed.
He was cannon fodder. His punishment was being cannon fodder. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was forced to kill his own people.
Yeah.
The
heretic was not really a heretic.
Oh,
misinformation.
It sounds like
misinformation.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but the heretics were right. They were right about the prophets. They were right about the great journey. But because of the way the story is designed, you think, okay, whoever you're shooting must be the bad guy, right?
Yeah,
but then the story actually shows you like, oh no, there's more going on, and it's like a blooming onion. Like Halo 2 it sticks with the theme of there are two sides to every story, right? You have the human side, the alien side. Not only that, but like quite literally, this is the first game where you could pick up two weapons, right? So you're constantly playing into this theme of two enemies. Like you're fighting the aliens, but then all of a sudden you're fighting the brutes, and then you're fighting the Flood at the end.
I forgot about the brutes. Holy shit!
Like that.
The brutes.
One of the greatest plot twists is when the brutes take over, and then you actually sympathize with the Covenant, with the elites.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like I could talk for hours about what I love about this game, but my favorite thing about this game. My favorite thing is the ability to jack a vehicle, like when you're trying to like steal a vehicle, and you can just like punch like the person until they die or until the vehicle blows up.
Yeah.
But what's even better than that is that they actually let you do that when you fight the Prophet. So these people, the prophets, they run their mouths for the whole game. They have a speech that lasts the entire game, and you get to punch one in the face. To me, that's like the biggest payoff in Halo. Like
they have like these floating chairs that shoot lasers at you, and you can jump on the chair and like you can beat the crap out of them until
satisfying. Satisfying.
Oh my
although
God.
although that the Halo's multiplayer was definitely a catalyst of its longevity and the success of Xbox Live and the success of the future Xboxes. To me, when you ask me as an individual, I don't have a favorite element of this game because it's all important. The story is important. The multiplayer is very important. They all needed to exist in order for this game to be successful and just historic. And from a multiplayer standpoint, one, the level designs were just outstanding. They're outstanding. All the different game modes you get to play, like yes, the future Halos would expand on it. You know, the capture the flag, oddball, Slayer, Team Slayer, free for all, and a big team Slayer. Like you can play with one person, you can play with 2 people, 4 people, 8 people, 16 people, and it's just endless amounts of fun. And
I would even argue that later Halo games regressed from Halo 2.
well, that's another conversation for another day. And
Yikes. Yeah.
King of the Hill. How can I forget King of the Hill? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. These and of course the announcer is just legendary, just outstanding. And the glitches, BXR, you know, and all this other
You
stuff.
can cheat yourself.
Double shot.
If you're playing the SWAT game type and you have no shields, if you fast enough, you can shoot yourself with the VR. It's hilarious.
And that was kind of a point of contention for the esports community. And also, this game was huge with esports. You know, it definitely expanded that. Yes, Quake and Doom were all huge of like bringing esports to a certain level, but Halo kind of brought it to like just to the stratosphere. It was unbelievable. And
launched with features like split screen, campaign, like
co-op.
Forge was so popular in Halo 3 that they added it back to Halo 2 on the PC version. That's another thing.
To me, Halo is the only reason to have an Xbox. It's literally the only reason.
It is Xbox. And like
Halo is Xbox.
Like all this shit, and like the thing is, all this shit that they added to Halo 2 and like the Master Chief Collection on like the current Xbox consoles is stuff that's been in there for years, but only on the PC port. Like, oh wow, well fuck it, let's all put it in one place. Like it, like this, like Halo 2 is one of the reasons why I always say that even movie sequels fall short sometimes. Video game sequels are so consistent. And
especially
Halo
this
2
one.
Is top of that list. Yeah.
If you remember, when the original Xbox 360 Halo 2 servers were not supported anymore, the fan base, they took matters into their own hands, and people were playing like a ported version on the PC that allowed you to play online. And I remember I had like a not so legal copy of it on my computer just so I could play online with people. Like there was such a desire for this game that I think maybe in a lot of ways it sort of like jet started the concept of the Master Chief Collection, because people wanted to play the old games. They didn't just want to get the next title and forget about the other ones. People were still playing Combat Evolved. People still wanted to play Halo 2. So, you know, now we have such like a jump start of life for Halo. You could play all of them if you want on the Xbox One. And even with Halo Infinite out, like Halo Infinite is the most recent title. People are still playing the older titles. More people are playing the older titles than the newer ones. That just goes to show how great this game was.
All right. Took enough of your time, but I did have a good time talking about these legendary games that we're all still playing to this day. So guys, here's your chance. You can plug your music links and all that crap.
Well, I do have a Bandcamp, Richard Arriaga .bandcamp.com. Got a lot of stuff on there. Still making music. Got a couple of new songs coming out pretty soon. But yeah, other than that, that's all I have to plug.
I have smileyarriaga.bandcamp.com, and if any of you listeners are into theater, I'm going to be set designing for My True Love, which is going to be at the Players Theater in May. So that's there's that. So.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for coming on. Later days.
My Little Underground.